All right. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. Welcome to WiCyS, Women in Cybersecurity's Augusta campus speaker series. Right now, what I'm gonna do is give a brief overview of what WiCyS is, and this is our national slide deck. And WiCyS, our executive director is Lynn Dahm. The mission for WiCyS is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. And as I stated, it's pronounced as WiCyS. I don't know how I used to pronounce it, but the meaning is We Cyber Sisters. All right. These are some of our board members. If you're interested in knowing more about the national organization, I had the opportunity to meet the founder. She's very intelligent, meek, and I just aspire to be the type of leader that she is. She's not like it's almost kind of like a powerhouse. Like you wouldn't know that she was the founder unless someone outed her out as being the founder. And I think that's such an incredible trait to have as a leader, to just see the impact of what you started and the people that have joined and who are motivated to come alongside of you in the mission. I just think that's amazing. So here's some other staff members. Just to give you a little bit of more statistics, in 2014, there were about 11% of women in cybersecurity, and there were a million unfulfilled cybersecurity roles. Compared to 2024, as you can see, the increase of roles was bumped up to 3.9 million for various reasons, as we increased in our uses of technology, etc. Um, and we also saw a slight increase to 24% of women in cybersecurity. Last year, I had the opportunity to join the 10-year celebration where WiCyS celebrated its 10 years of WiCyS conferences, which is an opportunity for students, professionals, people in all aspects of the industry to come together, to network, to learn new skills, be updated of what's going on in the industry. And this year, our hope is to, at the WiCyS conference, we demonstrate the diversity not by pointing out the problem, but by showcasing a spectrum of talents from a diverse group of professionals. So our hope this year is not only I will have the opportunity to go to the conference, but we would have other students represented from Augusta University's campus have the opportunity to go as well. So, what we can do is, if you're interested in hearing how you could partner with us to make that happen, to position these women in the right place to connect, to network, to learn new skills, and to hopefully find jobs, feel free to email us at augwicis, WICYS at outlook.com, and we can give you more information on how to donate, how to sponsor, or keep you updated on the events that we have on campus. So without further ado, um, my name is Jovi. I don't know if I started this speaker series with that, but my name is Jovi, and we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Cleo. And I have this long bio. I have this long bio of Cleo. But what I'm going to do is, before I read your bio, I didn't throw this question at you because I wanted to catch you off guard. Is I won't, if you had 3 words to describe yourself, which 3 words would you use and why?
You would do that, right? But you know what? I came prepared. So you said 3 words. You did not use, they're descriptive. They, um, it's a label that unfortunately, but fortunately was given to me. It just grew, but Black Swan Unicorn. Your Black Swan Unicorn. It's three. Um, and the reason behind that, and we'll go into when we go into the discussion, and you'll when you briefly, I guess, go over the bio a little bit. Some of the things that I've done throughout my cybersecurity journey, my IT journey, has always been, unfortunately, but fortunately, the anomaly, right? Always the one, always either the only female, always the only person of color, or sometimes the only female and person of color in an environment that is typically, just ran by a majority. So having to always stick out, having to always being the unexpected, because looks can be very deceiving. I probably don't look like a stereotypical um, IT person in certain settings, and then actions have always proven differently. And I leave the room with a new nickname. So this year it was Black Swan. So I just added it on to Unicorn, and yeah. So those are your three words. Ha ha.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, what I'll do is let me just formally introduce this Black Swan um, to everyone with a little bit more technical background. So, Cleo Brown is a senior enterprise and cloud computing architect slash engineer representing Peraton, um, supporting Peraton's contract with the U.S. Army Cyber Command, ARC Cyber. She advises on all Army cloud initiatives, cloud cybersecurity service provider activities, and defensive cyber operations, internal defense measures. Cleo was born and raised in Harlem, New York. I'm wearing the hat for you. The environment in which she was raised was not one that would nurture or grow interest in STEM. She would have been ostracized, her wanting to do anything related to science or technology, picked on or called names in an already fragile home. Knowing that she needed to change and had to leave, she enlisted into the Army 2 weeks after graduating high school. 2 years into her enlistment, she was awarded an Army Green to Gold Scholarship and was commissioned as a second lieutenant into the Signal Corps upon graduating Norfolk State University. She completed numerous assignments as a communications officer, installing, operating, and maintaining computer networks. From overseas to stateside, she provided the warfighter with the ability to communicate regardless of terrain or location. Service to America and leaving Harlem, New York is what Cleo has chosen to do. In 2011, Cleo transitioned from a signal officer to an information security manager, wanting to be more focused and aligned to information assurance and network defense. Not too long after, she was selected as one of the first members of the first cyber unit as the development of cyber professionals would continue to unfold. As she learned more about how simply implementing updates and software patches wasn't enough, she realized additional training was needed to become effective at defending the Army networks. It was time to fully pivot into cybersecurity, which led her to become a cyber officer trained in the defense of Army networks. So, retired from the military, excuse me. So, retired from the military and wanting to continue her service to America, she joined the Peraton team initially as a cyber operations planner, focusing on cloud security. She again realized that to be effective, additional training was required. With the support of Peraton, Cleo went back to school and received a graduate level degree in cloud computing architecture. This degree has allowed her to advance to the position of senior advisor for enterprise cloud architecture. Now, Cleo holds a master's in cloud computing architecture from the University of Maryland Global Campus, another master's in information resource management from Central Michigan University, and a bachelor's in computer information systems management from Norfolk State University. She is also a certified information systems professional and a certified information security manager. Now, that was a mouthful. What what comes to mind when you hear your bio being read out like that?
I need to shorten it. But um, it just puts in, and that was the short version when I had to sit down and write the bio, and I never realized the amount of things that I've done until I actually have to sit and really think about it, because it was just kind of par for the course. It was like, oh, I need this, got to do this, need this, got to do this. Just just continuing to grow, I guess. In some aspects, I'll think about the things that I've done and be like, okay, I'm not doing that again. Let me find something else, something new. um I still want to do this thing called cyber, this thing called IT. How do I make myself just a little different, career wise? So listening to the things I've done in the past actually motivates me to try to figure out, okay, what else can I do, what else is there, especially with technology and the way it changes so much.
Awesome. So, I have a list of questions for you. And before we jump in, is there anything that is pressing on your heart right now that you're like, if there's nothing else I say, I want to make sure the audience knows this.
um if I could say anything out of all of this is, always remain confident, always keep your competency, like, become very crafted and skilled in the things that you do, and then be confident in your execution of it. That is always, will always be the way we're able to set ourselves apart. And from anything else, that would be one takeaway. Confident and competence, they should run hand in hand.
Awesome. And I know someone shared the difference with me recently, that there's a difference between being driven and being confident. When you hear those two words, do you gauge a difference between the two?
I would, right? Being driven, I guess you can have the drive to do anything. I want to paint a picture, or I have the drive to, motivate myself to get up in the morning, right? There's you Confidence to me though is, there's a difference, right? You can be confidently driven or not so much driven, right? You can be confident in yourself, but it could be, I hope I'm trying to think of the words how to put it, but it could be blind confidence. That's where the difference is. There are people that are confident in their ability to convey message, convince people that the sky is purple, even though you're looking at it and clearly see is, well, it looks blue to me. No, it's purple. And they are so confident in their ability to convince an audience that, even confident in the ability to brief or convince in an untruth. That's different to me, in my perspective of being driven. Um, Being driven is to, uh, the passion and the energy behind accomplishing something that you really want. And no matter what it is, you do it. You can have the internal confidence in yourself, you get it done, but your confidence may lack in convincing an audience that you can do it. So, those are the differences to me, from my perspective, where you're driven to do something, accomplish something for yourself. Confidence, it comes in multiple different levels depending on what your end goal is.
Yeah. And I remember a story you shared with me about having a conversation um, with someone, and they asked you, what color is this? And they were confident, like you were confident that the color is blue. And they said, well, what if I were to tell you that it's yellow. And, you know, no, it's obviously blue. I can see it's blue, call it turquoise, call it uh, whatever. But the moral of that story was on their side of the block, the color was actually yellow. And on your side of the block, the color was actually blue. And it taught you a very valuable lesson about perspective and understanding how to engage with individuals who may have a different perspective and be willing to listen and to be open-minded. So I'll never forget that little nugget. But with being driven, we know that there can be moments where we face significant adversity. Can you share a specific moment when you faced significant adversity as a woman in cybersecurity? And specifically, how did it shape your career?
So there's been a number of examples where um, I faced a little, adversity just being who I am, and at the time, and I can relate it to being in uniform and out of uniform, right? In uniform is very clear, it's the military, it's army, is very male dominated. And then even in the IT force on the outside, it's almost the same. Um, However, although it may, initially feel, you may feel, I did initially a little bit intimidated, but the way I deal with intimidation is a little bit different from others, right? I guess it comes from the perspective I have growing up, where I grew up. It makes me even more driven. Um, so at those times where I felt challenged, if I felt that I am being, you know, pigeonholed or put in a little box and like we're not going to pay attention to you, and it's very clear and it's very obvious. Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? If it was a task that had to be accomplished, I'm not one to just do a lot of talking on the proposed, well, I intend to do this and I plan to do this. I just do and let that speak for myself, which in turns build the confidence level a little bit more. I don't have to prove anything. I didn't have to talk it through. I didn't have to convince anyone. The proof was in the pudding. The execution was there. So even though I was placed in a small bucket, I was placed in, oh, it's female, oh, well, we're not gonna, listen to her, or no, well, we have a better idea and it's stronger. My attitude tends to be, okay, that's fine. I just go do, and then I come back with it, and that has come with repetition. That did not happen overnight, because the 20-year-old version of me and the now much older version of me um are like night and day. I do learn how to work in environments that way and not become a victim of those environments, if that makes sense.
Does. Thank you so much for sharing. And along that note, you stated that was the 20-year-old version of you, but as time and as you've gotten more experience, you've learned how to use those circumstances to your greatest advantage. Now, was there a pivotal female figure in your life, or I mean, was there a pivotal female figure in your life, and like what key lesson did she impart that still influences you today?
I, I tell you what, when I saw that question, and I was like, this is a really good question, and it instantly, like most people, um, it's always either a parent or a family member or something. Mine was my grandmother. My had a very My grandmother, and bless her heart, instilled a lot of things in me at a young age. I was raised by my grandmother. Lost her, I feel too soon, but there's a reason for everything that makes you have to grow up sooner rather than later. But one of the biggest things that she taught me was to always stay the course and be confident in everything that you do. Nothing is too hard. Nothing is too difficult. Uh, And she always told me to make sure that I hold my character. She would say, "Your character is like a postage stamp. Once blotted out, is no more good." I didn't know what she meant, but I understand. As I grew older, I understood what she meant. You build a reputation of dependence. Um, Consistently and constantly work on your confidence, and there's nothing that you can't do. So when I was a child, it was a double dutch contest. It was a play, it was singing, it was going to church all day on Sundays, all day. But it was just those things that as a child I took for granted. But now I'm like, oh, she was on to something when she meant that she was, from originally from Alabama, coming up in that transitional age of, civil rights movement and so on, then moving to New York. So her steadfast ability to just do what she wanted to do, I think, is what I carried on with me, joining the military, uh, transitioning into different careers and different levels, even dealing with personal family engagements and so on. My grandmother was pivotal in that, and she was not technical at all, because grandma she didn't even like working a VCR or remote control or even the phone that actually had a cord with buttons. Yeah, grandma didn't do any of that. Was definitely not technologically advanced in anything, but it didn't matter. She was still able to impart those things for me.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. And it sounds like she imparted a lot of great wisdom in you that I'm sure could have helped you with this next aspect of the question that I wanted to ask is what cybersecurity challenge you personally struggled with, and what steps did you take to overcome it?
Let's see. I think the biggest challenge was, and it's constant, right? Because technology changes so much. So securing it, the development of new technology to now have to secure. The biggest challenge is not understanding. When I retired, I've done plenty with cybersecurity, right? Defensive cybersecurity, locking down the network, kicking bad guys, done all that. Now there's this thing called cloud, right? There's this thing called cloud technology, um, minimizing the dependence on your normal on-prem, like your normal computer systems, hardware, everything's in the cloud. I mean, all you Apple users out there, iCloud, right? Everything is stored in a cloud, still on a device somewhere, but not on your desk. Um, and that was something new for me. So how do I that's a challenge. I want this job. I want to do something different. I have all this experience and so on. So what do I do? I have to learn something new. I have to go back to school. I have to, okay, figure it out. And that becomes challenging, right? Because then, oh, can I do this? Maybe I'm too old. I'll just leave this for the young folks and then they can figure it out. And maybe I'll just do policy and procedures and I'll just write papers and not have to learn the hands on keyboard. I call it the worker bee grunge work of it all. But then I also said, well, how can I manage and lead folks if I don't even know what is required of it? If I don't know the detail of it. So the challenge was getting out of my own way and then buckling down to learn a new technology. The challenge continues because new technology comes out. We have AI. Now, like, oh, okay. So how does that work with, the implementation, leveraging cloud storage spaces and AI to look for bad guys and bad things or do data analytics? I'm not a math person. I don't want to do that. So it's like it's so many different challenges out there, but finding your niche, finding what you're good at, and then learning to expand upon it, I think is the best way to overcome. Is the best way I've found to overcome some of those challenges, and just leap over it and just prepare for the next one.
Right. So you shared you wanted to do something new, you wanted to do something different, but the challenge was the unknown aspect of it, especially with cloud security and where technology is going. It's a bit of a rat race to stay updated with everything. And what would you say is the most underrated skill that the most underrated skill that women should focus on to excel in cybersecurity, cloud security?
I actually think now I may be oversimplifying it. Um but women in, so let's just take STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. The goal, and it's always been to, and this is nationally, right? Started out, how do we get young girls, how do we get young people, period, for that matter, interested in STEM? We have, as women, we have the science part down. The S in STEM, oh, we got it. Most women, majority of your doctors, your nurses, uh, those type of fields where it requires you to pay close attention to detail, right? It requires you to be extremely competent because lives are dependent on that. Even, with mothers and grandmothers and everything, the nurturing that's there. With nurturing comes a level of competency to know that people are depending on you. We got that down pat. That's a skill that women have. We have it, if you want to say innately, genetically, society has placed that on us, that that's just how we should be. And how do we capitalize on that? Well, we're extremely competent, right? So if we can do that level of detail going into technology, engineering, and math, it really is, in my viewpoint, just as easy to gravitate to. There's no cookie cutter way to get to an answer, or when you advance in engineering mathematics, right? They give you all of these different formulas to use, but you settle on the formula that works best for you, that gets to the answer required. So the way you travel it is clearly up to you. There's the stigma of it having to be this way, this time, and so on. Um, I think with women and our ability to be very competent in our execution, no matter what it is a skill that I think we have naturally. That's a skill that cannot learn that in school. You cannot uh, go through college and everything learning how to be competent. Um, that just feeds it, right? Education feeds what's already innately there, and I think that's a skill that women just naturally have.
And something that you alluded to is like, well, whether the whole versus like nature versus nurture, is it innate or have we been socially constructed? But what I do love that you said is regardless of nature versus nurture, nature and nurture, or nurture, not nature, um, you challenge us to capitalize on it. And with that being said, sometimes there can be a sense of gender bias based on society or basically what I just said. But have you ever witnessed or experienced gender bias in the industry? And if so, how did you respond to it? I know it's catch 22, but give us some
Hmm.
examples.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I kind of alluded to some of it with being in the military. With with well, one, only if you think about it in a larger scope of things, I think is only 1 or 2% of Americans even volunteer to join the army, right? To join the military services, period. Then from that little 2%, you take another small percent to account for all the minorities that tend to join. And then from that one, you take the little bitty, percentage of women that go into. So there have always been societal efforts on trying to break that apart, where, now there are women allowed in infantry, field artillery, ranger, special forces. Their gender has on paper going out the window. But when you're actually sitting in the middle of it, it gets interesting. I have been there's been plenty of times where I'd sit and I just love to work a lot of times, believe it or not. I enjoy, especially when I'm having fun. But when there's a lull, and there's been moments where I could be sitting in a crowded room and look around and realize, oh, I am the only one today. This is interesting. Oh, it's gonna be one of these meetings, and I have to, grab myself up by the bootstraps. It was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna see. I'm gonna have to put some bass in my voice in here, and having to deal with being overtalked, interrupted in the middle of answering the question that was posed directly to you, and the assumption that you didn't have the answer. So that takes a lot to kind of muster up and not come off as have an attitude or being emotional, whatever, the all of the stigma. Um, and to break out of it, because my with it's always been that you will not get to say she cowered, or she did this, or she did that. Um, it was always like, uh-oh, so now from then on in the future, they knew not to challenge. Fast forward out of uniform in a civilian sector, and me thinking, oh, I'm out of the military and this is going to be nice because I'm a civilian now, and it's not really like that. No, wrong answer, same thing, just this time, we get a little bit, I have a little bit more leeway of what I can say. So there are moments where that would happen again, and I would respond in the manner of which I'm being, the energy that I'm receiving. So the way I'm just returning I'm feeling the vibe. I'm looking at the body language and how you're responding, and I respond the same way. And I start asking questions. So instead of becoming quiet as a mouse and retreating, instead of having an attitude towards it, then I return that. Okay, so in the manner, I'll say, for example, in the manner of which I'm answering your question, am I misleading? Am I wrong? If so, please explain why. Instead of always, and I think you said it initially, always pointing out the problem or pointing out what I've done wrong, then provide me with the solution. I would love to hear from your perspective, because this is from my lens, from where I sit, from what I know. Um, I was asked for my opinion, and I have colorful words, right? Opinions are like everyone's backside. Everyone got one. You don't have to look at it or smell it. It's there. Just ignore it, right? But give me yours. Provide me with what your perspective is, because clearly you're feeling or thinking something different. And that's typically how you kind of break it. That's typically how, sometimes it doesn't work all the time. It becomes difficult, but eventually over time develop. I call it a duck alligator skin. Never take it personal. Understand that that's from their perspective, and whatever disagreements they may have, it's on them, and it's okay. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a learned behavior.
And one of our attendees stated that they completely agree with your comment on tech and engineering, because they've discovered they needed to be more brave compared to confident due to the overwhelming demographic of a male dominated sector, and competing pre biases about different learning styles. So they definitely wanted to comment on that. Um,
But it's also,
so
to caveat
go
for
ahead.
that, it's also a way to garner mentors that don't that do not necessarily look like you. So there have been, I remember a very couple of years ago where I was challenged in an environment, and then it turned it kind of flipped, and that gentleman ended up being a mentor, would take me everywhere, and that was very unexpected. because we definitely look like an odd couple walking into a meeting. Because, oh, so they're a team. Yeah, because once where everyone was, scared of the individual, intimidated by the individual, and then here I go, rainbows and butterflies, and just like, well, I hear what you're saying, but I feel this, and give me your perspective, or why do you feel that way, and picking it apart and having that type of discussion. This individual ended up becoming a mentor, and like, hey Cleo, you should be doing this. Hey, did you think about this? And it was so unexpected. Would have never thought that that individual would pick me up like that.
Mm, that's awesome. Knowing what I know about you now, um, and you've instilled a lot of, I think of our conversation when I asked you, if they tell me I don't have a choice in this particular role, you were very quick on your feet to show me, well, how can I rephrase it to where it does sound like I have a choice, and to leverage that opportunity in my best favor.
Mhm.
So we see the importance of just having mentors in our lives. So what advice would you give women who may feel isolated in their roles within cybersecurity teams specifically?
I would tell them to, my advice would be to gradually work on, and I mentioned it before earlier, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? There's a certain level of freedom in that. And I say that to a point where if you're going to, I wish I could say that no matter what job you have in cybersecurity, you will not feel isolated. Like there's a special niche just for us. And that's not true. It's not the case. But when you get comfortable with knowing that you know your job, you work on being more confident in it, the environment that you're in, it will not feel as isolated. It will not feel that you're the only one and that you're alone. And also reaching out and talking to others, because there are others that are in your field that are reach out. There's so many, like for instance, WiCyS. I love that. I was wondering, I was like, well, how do they say this acronym? That is perfect. um to reach out and leverage them. Talk to a mentor right before going into a situation where you know you're going to be isolated. Get that 10-15 minute before going in pep talk, to know that you may be physically alone sitting in this meeting, but you're not alone, because someone else is experiencing the same thing. Practice, 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 practice being in situations that you would normally be uncomfortable with and you wouldn't like. Like I'm not a fan of country music. My husband loves country music. I'm from up north, he's from down south. But I want to support him, right? So there I go, sitting there listening to country music. Can line dance, listening to all this stuff. Like, okay. I'm very uncomfortable and I feel isolated, but I was like, okay, I'm supporting him. He loves it. Let me find a way. So in my head, I'm singing a version of the country music that I like. And so it's like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I found the beat. I was like, oh, this could work. Oh, okay, I like it. Make it my own. Make the environments of which you may feel isolated, make it your own and get it. And it takes time. Get it. It takes time. It takes practice, constant and consistent. But it can be done. And that's in cybersecurity. And there's so many paths within cybersecurity. Um, it runs the gambit, and especially as we close out, because it is, if you didn't know, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So with all of the governmental initiatives to get more women engaged in cybersecurity, more communities that are underrepresented, to make sure that they are not isolated and don't feel like they're the only ones, and don't feel that they can't do it. um, the growth potential is there to come out of that shell. I hope I answered the question. I have my squirrel moments, but I hope I answered it.
Squirrel. Yes, you did. You did. Um, okay, so to get more on the technical side, I did want to start this interview off with getting to know you as a person and your experiences because I know, like, if individuals like myself read your bio, see all the things you've done, see all the titles, I'm just like, how in the world? Where do you even start? Um, but to also humanize your experience because it takes a strong foundation to reach the level of heights that you have reached. And it takes commitment, especially being one of the forerunners in this industry, and add another layer in an industry that is becoming fairly new with cloud computing. Um, So if someone were to read your bio and see that you are a cloud architect, like what does that even mean?
So I try to work on the like the layman's terms of it, and a lot of times I'll use social media, right? Because my kids love, I'm an old head because I use Facebook, right? I'm like, gosh, Facebook, Instagram, oh my goodness. Okay, whatever. Or watching my YouTube videos. All of that information is stored somewhere. All of the generation that creates their content for their YouTube and their TikToks, right? All of their images, their likeness, their voices, their words, everything, it goes out into, I like it goes out into the world, right? It's stored in somebody's cloud. But how is it secured? You know, how do, if I'm working for TikTok and I'm working for a storage location here, and right, and I know that all of those images, all of the music, the voices, everything is stored. How do I lock that down? How do I secure it? um that's what I do. I develop, engineer, advise on engineering different ways to secure that information, to secure that data, to secure it coming in, going out, stored somewhere. Advise on better ways to do that, better ways to protect the image, to protect your words, to protect the language, that it is that it is you speaking and not someone else's, but it just looks like you. AI, for example, which is another technology I'm pretty sure would need to learn, um, on how to secure it and prevent things like that from happening. So as a uh, engineer, as an architect advising on that, I leverage best practices in the industry, right? Learn from others' mistakes to not make them again, right? To be wise with it, like, okay, since that did not work for you, maybe we're going to do this and learn from that so that my organization doesn't make the same mistakes, and I can provide examples on why this is going to work. This is how it would potentially work if you did this, this, and this. This is the risk you accept if you do not implement this, this, and this, and draw it out in layman's terms so that they can understand it. Not everyone's going to understand the ones, the zeros, the routers, the switches, and the permission. They just need to know the bottom line. And my job is to translate it that way. So understanding the technical part enough so that I can break it down completely in layman's terms at the executive level so that they can understand the bottom line.
That unicorn experience, having the technical background and also effective communication as well. Now, I was asked in a recent interview what tools or resources, organizations I am using to stay up to date in the industry. So I want to throw that question to you. How do you stay updated in the industry? What tools, resources, or podcasts or trainings would you recommend individuals to use?
Now I did write some of that down just to make sure, right? With the growing there's a growing demand for cybersecurity professionals, the ability to learn different technologies rapidly and so on. So with the like at the DoD level, governmental level, the national strategy, there's been published a national strategy on cybersecurity, building the workforce, right? And there's a list of organizations and corporations that are actually driving that effort. They're providing, in some cases, free training for college students, high school students, internship opportunities. For example, the contract company I work for with Paraton, who was actually recognized by the National Security Strategy that was published over the summer. Um, as one of the companies that is starting to realize, okay, we need to train a workforce. We need to get, how do we prep them? Where do we even begin? So it's partnerships with schools, starting in middle school, high school, colleges, offering those summer internships to build those skills. Um, of course, online, there's a number of like YouTube videos. There's organizations out there, for example, WiCyS, right? That's a collective keying in on a certain population. There's women in cyber, women in technology. Um, there's even an initiative that just started this past fall with the office chief of uh, cybersecurity. Like there's a whole Congress actually passed to implement an actual strategy on how do we like grow our own cybersecurity professionals? How do we get out, make sure that they understand cybersecurity isn't just ones and zeros. It's from the security of a building to understanding how to lock stuff down when you're even logging on to your banking information on your computer, on your laptop, on your mobile device. It's so many different facets. Um, they're rolling out all of these initiatives to go ahead and do that. Leveraging some of the mentors. LinkedIn, for example, there's tons of stuff out there. Watch out for the bad stuff, though. That's another security thing. If you cannot track down the location and yeah, does it if it sounds too good, looks too good, too obvious, it probably is. You can get your you can do a little cybersecurity analysis yourself simply on just, asking questions. The resources are, I mean, it's a number of them. It really depends on the path that you decide or want to take. Whether you're changing careers completely, there's no reason why someone who was majoring in culinary arts can't switch and decide, you know what, I want to be a cybersecurity person. I mean, and you really can. There is security in everything that we do every day, all day.
Good. Yeah, I am one of those persons that made a pivot. So it definitely is possible. And I know we're getting ready to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. I did want to ask you one question before I reached out to individuals joining this meeting. So I'll go ahead and tee up the individuals joining in this meeting. If you do have a question, go ahead and post it in the chat. And I can call on you to, if you would like to voice it, say, I like to voice it, and put your question in the chat. Um, and then I can call on you if you want to speak to Cleo specifically, or I can share your question, whichever you prefer. But for you, Cleo, reflecting on your journey, what would you say to your younger self about pursuing a career in cybersecurity?
I would tell myself, yeah, well, there's a number of things I would tell myself, which is why I pause, right? But we go with cybersecurity. Um, but it kind of relates to it, right? I would say to myself to not to waste so much time on insignificant things. And I say that because when we're young, we're so concerned. Well, I know I was about the judgment of others, right? What people thought, how I was perceived in their eyes. And I spent a lot of time, to me, it was wasted time where I could have used to just, I could have taken that time and focus my attention on the what now, right? Okay, so I felt that way. Okay, so what now? What are you going to do? And instead of taking days with just being in myself because I'm woe is me, that could have been time placed in learning something new instead of getting that B or C, because I wasn't always a grade A student, right? Instead of that C or B, what dang, what did I know? What do you do now? How do you improve? Learning, I would tell myself to insignificant things don't matter. What are you going to do now to fix it? Just imagine how further you would be had you done that. And that was years of learning and stuff like that. Um so that's exactly what I would tell my younger self. I would probably be like, oh, that person they not with you. No, don't spend that time. We get to these emotional entanglements and it drives you off course. So I would tell myself, stay on course, stay driven, don't get sidetracked. You'll have time for all that stuff later. Um, and that's what I would tell my younger self.
I definitely appreciate it because I've come to you like Cleo. I'm hearing this being said. Like, what do I? Am I too strong? Am I too like? Am I? What am I doing? How do I? What? And I've just really appreciated our connection to be able to bounce off your experiences of like, okay, I'm not the only one. Okay, maybe changing myself is not the answer, but how can I adjust um maybe some things that I how do I say things to make it audible and clear for other individuals. But you've just given me a lot of advice, and I appreciate your mentorship. I see someone typing in the chat.
Hmm.
um
And while she
so
finished typing, remember, you never change who you are. Never change who you are. Just have the or give the individuals the grace of knowing that they're seeing things from their perspective, and then learn how to then incorporate their perspective into how you respond without changing who you are. So acknowledge the fact that they have another perspective, and it is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you are entitled to yours in the way you maneuver and do things, and put it in and give it back to them, right? And then that'll let you realize, so it is not you, it is not who you are or how you go about doing things. You've given them grace to kind of figure it out on their own, but you don't internalize that because it's not your fault. It's not who it That has nothing to do with you. It has to do with a person's inability to then provide you with the same grace, and then to know that you come with a different perspective and a different way of going about things. And they can do that. That's cybersecurity, that's in mathematics, that's in anything, because there's so many different roads to take to get to a single destination. It's just knowing that there are other roads routes to get to that final destination. So I hope that helps.
does. Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the chat. So I'll read the question. Tiana, did you want to come off or you want me to read it? All right. So, what career choice would you have gone into if you didn't pursue cyber?
So if I had not pursued cyber, I probably would have danced. When I graduated high school, I'm dating myself. Oh, some of y'all probably weren't even born yet. In 95, July 95, starting that year in 95, I had already signed up to join Army. I was 17. And I already knew what I was going to do after graduation, but I was part of a dance group. Now, this was the age of the 90s where, we danced. And this is in New York, right? I danced at the Apollo not once, but twice. I was part of a dance group. A name of our group was Genesis, right? And Oh, we danced. It was fun. I'm thinking back of some of the dance routines we did. I could never do that now. I was like 116 pounds, soaking wet. And it was reggae and hip hop. And I remember the night we danced, both nights. One night, Mary J. Blige was there, Soul for Real was there. Dougie Fresh hosted that night. We didn't get booed. We actually came back the following week and we lost to a bunch of little kids step into This Is How We Do It. This was before Amateur Night at the Apollo split up to have the youth and then, the adults. But some of my dance partners or some of the folks that would dance with, they went on to dance for Missy Elliott. They went on to dance for Mariah Carey. They went on to, like, that was their career. That's what they did. I joined the Army, right? Right, because it made sense, right? I had bills to pay. um I had, I had priorities, right? I had to get out of the city. I'm growing up in your stereotypical environment. Statistically I should still be at home. Unfortunately, inner city urban statistics, right, at home, unfortunately never leave, never left, just nothing. And I could not do that. Do I think I could still dance? Sometimes I do, but 26 years in the Army, my hips don't move the way they do. So I do a little two step, and I help my daughter with hers because she's now competition dance. Yay, that means travel. So much fun. But yeah, that's probably complete opposite of sitting at a computer and typing. It's more, okay, which outfit can I change into? Which I still kind of do, which is an anomaly because my hair typically matches my nails and my J's. So I'm not knocking stuffy suits. I'm not doing that. However, I am from New York. We tend to be a little, fashionably different. So that's how I get it out what my other life would have been had it not been IT.
Awesome. Little two step. All right, last question for you. Have you seen any or currently see any particular trends happening in cybersecurity that current students may gain an advantage from studying since, cyber and technology is so fast moving?
Definitely, especially with the past couple of months. Well, this past year, but increasingly this past couple of months, with organizations looking to grow cybersecurity, looking to grow the workforce. This is the prime opportunity for students to not only major in cybersecurity, but even as freshmen and sophomores, uh, apply for the internships, especially with AU. You guys, the students are in a prime location with the Georgia Cyber Center. The reason, the development of that, how it's incorporating not only academia, medical, and government all in the same spot. And like, I, so I'm biased, right? My company Paraton, they've been extremely nice to me every time I want to um do something new with cybersecurity. For example, the question was, as technology increase changes and rapidly adapts, there are corporations that will help you adapt with it, that provide you the training and provide you the right environment so that way you can learn all these new things. And with the AU students, they're right smack dab in the middle of it. So if they're freshmen, sophomore, juniors that have been, I don't quite know, I don't realize, do an internship. What best way to determine or confirm whether or not this is the true path that you want to take? By working in it for a little while. Get the experience. You will either learn that, okay, this part of cybersecurity I don't like, but I like this one right here. I might want to do risk mitigation framework. I don't really want to do the ones as if there's so many aspects, and the only way you can learn is by actually working in the field, doing it, going through the process, and so on. And it's become easier to do that, especially with folks graduating. Oh, I can't get a job. I don't have any experience. So yeah, well, that's when you leverage those types of companies, like Paraton, that'll give you that experience. So now, guess what? You have this. You know, there's internships with some of the other governmental agencies that are here in the area that AU students can take advantage of. So get out there, learn it, work the job for a little bit over summer, and just like, I don't want to do this. Maybe I'll do this, and that gives you some insight into what to expect.
Awesome. Well, if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can find you on LinkedIn, Cleo
Yep.
Brown. Just don't be weird and fishy,
Oh, because I'm gonna
because
figure it out. That's what I
she's gonna
do.
figure it out. She's gonna figure it out. Well,
Yes.
Cleo, thank you so much for your time, your feedback, your insight. Is there anything else that you would like to share as we close?
No. Please do not hesitate in reaching out. Send me a message on LinkedIn. You have any questions about opportunities? What should you do next? Should you major in this? I don't want to major in that. I'm not even in cybersecurity, but I'm expecting anything that you to help guide and help and assist. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for it. Just send me a note, and I can provide all of that information and some links to help you out along the way.
All right, awesome. And I'll be sure with our WiCyS community, she did share a link for internships with Peraton specifically. So I'll be sure to share that out. And if there's anything that looks interesting, feel free to, address it in your invitation on LinkedIn. All right. Well,
Exactly.
Cleo, thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us today. Have a great one.
All
Keep two
right.
stepping.
Mhm. And thank you. No, thank you, everyone.